The human ship floated in the blackness of space. Its metal skin shone under the light of distant stars. Commander Jack Miller stood at the viewing window, his tired eyes fixed on the enemy ships nearby. The Craxian vessels were huge and shaped like sharp knives. Their dark metal seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. Jack ran a hand through his short brown hair and sighed. He had been fighting the Craxians for 15 years now. 15 years of blood, death, and sacrifice. Too many friends lost. Too many nightmares that woke him in the dark hours of ship night. "Commander," said his second-in-command, Alan White, "the Craxian ambassador is ready to meet with you." Jack nodded and straightened his blue uniform. "How do I look?" he asked with a small smile. "Like a man who just won the biggest battle in human history," Alan replied. It was true. 3 days ago, Jack had led the human fleet to victory at Proxima Centauri. His bold strategy had caught the Craxians by surprise. No one expected the humans to split their forces and attack from behind. Jack's plan had worked perfectly, and now the mighty Craxian Empire wanted to talk peace. The meeting room was cold, and bare except for a long metal table. Jack sat on one side with 5 other human officers. Across from them sat the Craxians. They were tall beings with gray skin that looked like stone. Their eyes were black with thin red lines instead of pupils. Sharp ridges of bone ran along their heads like crowns. "Commander Miller," said the Craxian ambassador, his voice deep and rumbling, "your victory was unexpected. The High Council believes it is time to end this wasteful conflict." Jack kept his face calm, but inside he felt a rush of hope. "Peace? After all these years?" "We are prepared to discuss terms," Jack said carefully. The talks went on for hours. The Craxians wanted to keep certain star systems. The humans wanted their colonies back. Maps were studied. Arguments were made. Progress was slow, but steady. Then came the strange moment that would change everything. As a show of our good faith, the Craxian ambassador said, "We offer you a personal gift, Commander Miller." 2 Craxian guards entered the room. Between them walked a human woman. She was small, with light brown hair cut short and unevenly. Her skin was pale, as if she hadn't seen sunlight in years. She wore a simple gray shift that hung loosely on her thin frame. Around her neck was a metal collar with blinking lights. "This is a fine specimen," the ambassador said proudly. "Captured on Colony 7 12 years ago. Well-trained and obedient. A worthy gift for a warrior of your status." Jack felt his stomach turn. Slavery. The most hated crime in human society, outlawed for centuries on Earth and all its colonies. The woman kept her eyes down, staring at the floor. "Her name is Lily Adams," the ambassador continued. "She understands both our language and yours. She will serve you well." Jack wanted to shout, to flip the table, to punch the smug look off the ambassador's face. But years of military discipline kept him still. He knew the rules of diplomacy. Refusing a gift was a grave insult to Craxians, an insult that could end the peace talks and restart the war. "I accept your gift," Jack said, the words tasting like poison in his mouth. The Craxian ambassador looked pleased. He pressed a small device, and the collar around Lily's neck made a clicking sound. "She is yours now," he said. "The control key is simple to use." The meeting ended soon after. Jack walked back to his quarters with Lily following 3 steps. Behind him, just as she had been trained. His crew members stared as they passed. Some looked angry, others confused. Humans did not keep slaves. Once inside his private room, Jack turned to face Lily. She kept her eyes down. "Look at me," he said gently. Slowly she raised her head. Her eyes were green, but there was no light in them. No hope, no fear, no anger, nothing. "I'm going to take that collar off," Jack said. For the first time, a flicker of emotion crossed her face. "Confusion? Worry? The Craxians gave you to me," Jack explained as he studied the collar, looking for a way to remove it. "But humans, don't own other humans. You're free now." Lily tilted her head slightly. "Free?" she repeated, as if the word made no sense. Jack found the release mechanism and pressed it. The collar opened with a soft click and fell to the floor. He kicked it away. "Yes, free," he said. "No one owns you anymore. You can make your own choices." Lily rubbed her neck where the collar had been. A band of lighter skin showed where the sun had never touched. "I do not understand, Master." "Not Master," Jack corrected firmly. "My name is Jack, Commander Jack Miller, and you are Lily Adams, a free human being." Lily looked around the room, clearly confused. What does Lily Adams do now? Jack hadn't thought that far ahead. What would happen to her? She couldn't just step back into normal society after years of slavery. She didn't know how to be free. "For now, you'll stay here on the ship," he decided. "We'll find you proper clothes, your own quarters. You'll need time to adjust." "Adjust," she repeated. Her accent was strange, a mix of human English and the harsh sounds of Craxian speech. Over the next few days, as the peace talks continued, Jack learned more about Lily. She had been taken during a raid when she was only 10 years old. She remembered little of her life before slavery. She had been owned by 3 different Craxians, each worse than the last. Jack gave her a private room next to his own. He brought her clothes, books, and simple games. He tried to teach her about freedom, about making choices. It was hard. She would stand in front of the food dispenser for minutes, unable to decide what to eat. Too many options scared her. She flinched when people moved too quickly. She always walked 3 steps behind Jack until he insisted she walk beside him. She never looked crew members in the eye. As the days passed, Jack found himself facing an impossible problem. The peace talks were going well. Soon they would end and his ship would return to Earth. What would happen to Lily then? She wasn't ready for normal human society. She had no family, no home, no skills for free life. But he couldn't send her back to the Craxians either. One night, Jack sat in his office staring at reports but not reading them. A soft knock came at his door. "Enter," he called. Lily stepped inside. She wore the standard blue uniform given to civilian passengers. It was the first time she had come to see him without being called. "I have brought you this," she said, holding out a data pad. Jack took it and looked at the screen. It showed Craxian, ship movements, defense codes, base locations. "Lily," he said slowly, "where did you get this information?" "I was owned by Commander Zex of the 3rd Fleet," she explained. "He talked freely in front of me. I listened. I remembered." Jack stared at her with new understanding. All those years as a slave, invisible to her masters, she had been watching, learning, remembering. What Jack didn't know then was that this moment would change everything, not just for him and Lily, but for the entire war, for both humans and Craxians. The gift the Craxians had given him would become their greatest mistake, and the woman they had treated as property would help bring down an empire. Jack stared at the data pad in his hands. The information Lily had provided was worth more than gold. It showed secret Craxian bases, ship movements, and even security codes. If this was real, it could change everything. "Lily," he said slowly, "how do you know all this is correct?" Lily stood with her hands folded in front of her, a habit from her years of slavery. "I was trained to remember everything I saw or heard. If I forgot, I was punished." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "And your Craxian masters talked freely in front of you?" "Yes," she said. "Slaves are like furniture to them, not worth noticing." Jack called Alan White to his office and showed him the information. Alan's eyes grew wide as he scrolled through the data. "This can't be real," Alan whispered. "No one has this kind of access to Craxian systems." "Test it," Jack ordered. "Check it against what we already know." 2 days later, Alan confirmed that everything they could verify matched perfectly with Lily's information. What they couldn't verify was new intelligence that could give humans a huge advantage. Jack watched Lily closely during this time. She was changing day by day. She stood a little straighter. Sometimes she even smiled. Once, he heard her laugh. When a crew member told a joke in the mess hall, The sound was like sunshine breaking through clouds. One morning, Jack was walking with Lily to the meeting room when he heard her mumble something under her breath. The words weren't English. They sounded like the harsh, clicking language of the Craxians, but not the simple words slaves were taught. "What did you just say?" Jack asked, stopping in the hallway. Lily looked surprised. "I was, thinking out loud. I'm sorry." "That was High Craxian," Jack said. "The language only their leaders speak." "How do you know it?" Lily's eyes darted around, checking if anyone else was nearby. "My last master was Commander Zex, but before him, I belonged to Grand Admiral Zorax for 6 years." Jack nearly gasped. Zorax was the highest military leader in the Craxian Empire, the mastermind behind countless attacks on human worlds. "You lived in Zorax's house?" "I served at his meetings," Lily explained. "I poured drinks while they planned attacks, talked strategy, and argued about politics. They never saw me as a threat. I was just nothing to them." Jack's mind raced. "You understand not just their language, but how they think, don't you?" Lily nodded. "They are not like humans. They respect only strength and fear. Kindness is weakness to them. When you try to be fair in these peace talks, they see it as proof that humans are inferior." Jack immediately took Lily to meet Admiral Susan Carter, the highest-ranking officer on the ship. The Admiral was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "This is the slave girl the Craxians gave you?" Carter asked, looking Lily up and down. "She isn't a slave anymore," Jack said firmly, "and she might be the most valuable intelligence asset we've ever had." Carter looked doubtful, but she listened as Lily explained what she knew about Craxian leadership, their military plans, and their view of humans. "They are planning to break the peace agreement," Lily revealed. "They only offered it because they need time to bring their new warships from the far side of their empire. Ships with weapons that can destroy an entire planet. How can we trust this information?" Carter asked Jack. "She was their property for years. She could be working for them." "Test me," Lily said, surprising both officers. "I can prove what I know." Over the next week, Carter's intelligence team checked everything, Lily told them. They compared her information with what they already knew from spies and captured Craxian data. Everything matched. Lily even helped them break into Craxian communication channels they had never accessed before. "She's telling the truth," Carter finally admitted to Jack. "But what do we do with this information? If we show our hand too early, the Craxians will know we have a source." Jack had been thinking about this problem. "We need to change how we approach the peace talks," he said. "Lily understands how Craxians think. We need to speak their language, not just their words, but their cultural language." "What do you mean?" Carter asked. "Craxians respect power above all," Jack explained. "Our human approach of compromise and fairness looks like weakness to them. We need to act in a way they understand." With Lily's guidance, the human team created a new strategy for the peace talks. Instead of being open and fair, they would be strong and direct. They would show the Craxians that humans knew more than they should, that humans had power the Craxians didn't expect. The next meeting started like the others. The Craxian ambassador, with his stone-gray skin and black eyes, sat across from Jack and Admiral Carter. But this time Lily stood behind Jack, dressed in a human uniform with no rank markers. "Before we continue discussing the Proxima Centauri boundary," Jack said, "we want to address the fleet movements in the Zeta sector." The ambassador's face showed nothing, but his red pupils narrowed slightly. "There are no fleet movements in Zeta sector." Jack smiled coldly. "Then perhaps you can explain why Grand Admiral Zorax ordered 3 battle cruisers to the hidden base on Corax 9 3 days ago? The same base you claim doesn't exist." The ambassador's mouth opened slightly, then closed. His eyes flicked to his aides, then back to Jack. "Or," Carter added, "we could discuss the new planet-killer weapons being tested in the Dark Star system." Now the ambassador's composure broke completely. His eyes darted around the room until they landed on Lily. For the first time, he truly looked at her. Recognition dawned on his face, followed by shock, and then fury. "This meeting is over," he hissed, standing up so quickly his chair fell backward. This is a violation of diplomatic protocol. Sit down, Ambassador, Jack said, his voice hard as steel. Unless you want us to send proof of your hidden bases and secret weapons to every neutral world in the galaxy. How many of your allies would stay with you then? The ambassador slowly picked up his chair and sat. His hands shook with rage. The terms of peace have changed, Jack continued, and to show how serious we are. He slid a data pad across the table. Here are the security codes for your defense network around Craxian Prime, your homeworld. The ambassador looked at the codes and his gray skin turned almost white. How did you? We have our ways, Jack said. Now let's discuss real peace. Not the kind where you try to trick us while building secret weapons. The ambassador stared at Jack, then at Lily, and then at the data pad with the codes that could leave his homeworld defenseless. I must speak with the High Council, he said, finally. As the Craxians hurried out of the room, Jack turned to Lily. You were right. They only understand power. Lily's green eyes, once empty, now shone with something new. Pride. This is just the beginning, she said softly. There is so much more they don't know that we know. What Jack didn't realize was how true her words were. The knowledge Lily carried would do more than change the peace talks. It would shake the foundations of the entire Craxian Empire. News travels fast, even in the vastness of space. 2 weeks after the Craxian ambassador left the peace talks in shock, strange reports began coming in from across Craxian space. Jack was in his office when Alan White rushed in without knocking. Commander, you need to see this, Alan said, his voice tight with excitement. He placed a data pad on Jack's desk. Jack read the report and looked up in surprise. A slave uprising on Craxian mining world Zarth? Are you sure this is accurate? Completely, sure, Alan confirmed. And it's not just Zarth. We're getting reports of slave rebellions on 3 other Craxian planets. Jack leaned back in his chair, trying to make sense of it. What triggered this? The Craxians have had slaves for thousands of years without major rebellions. A soft voice came from the doorway. They know about me. Jack and Alan turned to see Lily standing there. In the weeks since the peace talks, she had changed even more. She stood straight and tall now. Her hair had grown a bit longer and her face had filled out as proper meals replaced years of slave rations. But the biggest change was in her eyes. They were alert, alive, and confident. What do you mean they know about you? Jack asked. Lily stepped into the room. The slaves have their own way of talking to each other. Small signs, certain words, marks left in places only slaves would look. It's a secret language the masters never noticed. And they're talking about you? Alan asked, sounding doubtful. They're talking about a human slave who became free and helped humans gain power over Craxians, Lily explained. The story has spread. It gives them hope. Over the next few days, more reports arrived. Escaped slaves were showing up at human outposts, asking for protection. Each one brought more information about Craxian defenses, weaknesses, and secrets. Jack took Lily to meet Admiral Carter again. This time, Carter listened carefully to everything Lily said. The Craxian Empire isn't what we thought it was, Lily told them. They want everyone to think they're all-powerful warriors. But the truth is different. Nearly half of their population are slaves of many different species, including thousands of humans. Their military, their economy, their whole society depends on slave labor. Without it, they would fall apart. And now the slaves are rising up, Carter said thoughtfully. Because they see a chance, Lily said. For the first time, they believe freedom is possible. Carter looked at Jack. The peace talks are dead. The Craxians are pulling back to deal with these uprisings. This changes our whole strategy. Jack had been thinking about this too. Admiral, I have an idea. Instead of direct military attacks, what if we focused on freeing slaves throughout Craxian territory? A liberation campaign. Carter looked interested. Lily knows their security systems, their slave-holding facilities. With that knowledge, our special forces could free thousands of slaves. Each one freed becomes an ally with inside knowledge of Craxian systems. Carter nodded slowly. It could work. A different kind of war. Not ship against ship, but one that attacks the very foundation of their society. She turned to Lily. Would you help us plan these missions? Lily stood a little straighter. Yes, I can do more than plan. I should go with them. Jack felt his heart jump with worry. That's too dangerous. The Craxians would execute you if they caught you. I know how slaves think, how they hide, how they survive, Lily insisted. I speak their secret language. They will trust me when they might not trust human soldiers. After much argument, a compromise was reached. Lily would help plan the missions and communicate with freed slaves once they were safely on human ships. But she wouldn't go on the ground missions herself. The liberation campaign began. Using Lily's knowledge, human special forces slipped past Craxian defenses and freed slaves from mines, factories, and farms across multiple worlds. The freed slaves, many of whom had technical skills from years of forced labor, joined the human side. Some even joined the military, eager to fight their former masters. What had been a standard military conflict transformed into something else, a revolution that spread like wildfire through Craxian territory. Lily became the center of it. All former slaves looked to her as a symbol of hope. She spent hours each day talking to them, helping them adjust to freedom just as Jack had helped her. As the weeks passed, Jack found himself watching Lily with new feelings. She wasn't just a former slave with valuable information anymore. She was strong, brave, and kind despite everything she had suffered. When she smiled, which happened more often now, Jack felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the war or their mission. One night, after a particularly successful liberation mission that freed over 300 slaves, the crew held a small celebration. Jack found Lily standing alone by a viewing window, looking out at the stars. You should be celebrating, he said, moving to stand beside her. This was your plan, and it worked perfectly. Lily smiled. I never thought I would see this day. Slaves, walking free, holding their heads high. She turned to look at him. Thank you, Jack. For what? He asked. For seeing me as a person when I couldn't even see myself that way. Something passed between them in that moment. A connection that went beyond commander and refugee. Beyond friends, even. Jack was about to speak when alarms blared throughout. The ship. Battle stations. A voice called over the ship's comm system. Unknown vessel approaching at high speed. Jack ran to the bridge, Lily close behind him. On the main screen, they saw a small Craxian ship heading straight for them. It's not slowing down, reported the weapons officer. They're on a collision course. Evasive maneuvers, Jack ordered. Target their engines. The human ship turned sharply, firing at the approaching Craxian vessel. But the smaller ship kept coming, taking damage but not stopping. It's a suicide attack, Carter said grimly from her command chair. Suddenly, the Craxian ship changed course slightly. It was no longer aiming for the ship's critical systems but for a specific section. They're targeting the diplomatic quarters. Alan shouted. That's where Lily's room is. Jack felt cold fear grip his heart. They're trying to kill Lily. They know she's the key to all of this. The human gunners finally hit something vital in the Craxian ship. It exploded in a ball of fire, but a piece of debris broke off and smashed into the side of the human vessel. The ship rocked violently as alarms wailed. Damage report, Carter ordered. Hull breach on Deck C, came the response. Fire in diplomatic quarters. Jack ran from the bridge without waiting for orders. He raced through corridors filled with smoke, pushing past crew members heading for safety. All he could think about was Lily. He found her helping injured crew members evacuate from the damaged section. As Jack reached her, a secondary explosion rocked the ship. A wall panel burst outward, sending metal shards flying. Jack moved without thinking. He shoved Lily aside and felt a sharp, burning pain in his side as a metal shard tore through his uniform. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was Lily's face above his, her green eyes wide with fear, her lips forming his name. When Jack woke up in the medical bay, Lily was sitting beside his bed. She looked tired but unharmed. When She saw he was awake. Her face lit up with relief and something else, something deeper. "You saved my life," she said softly, taking his hand. "You saved mine first," Jack replied, "by showing us how to fight the Craxians." As they looked at each other, both knew that something had changed between them. The Craxian assassination attempt had failed, but it had succeeded in one unintended way. It had brought Jack and Lily closer together, forging a bond that would shape the future of the conflict and beyond. 6 months passed. The war that had lasted for 15 years was ending, but not in the way anyone had expected. Jack stood on the bridge of his ship looking at the main screen. It showed a planet with blue oceans and green continents. Once, this had been a major Craxian military base. Now it was the center of something new, a free world where former slaves were building their own society. Lily stood beside him, her shoulder touching his. They rarely left each other's side these days. After Jack recovered from his injuries, they had admitted their feelings for each other. 2 weeks ago, they had married in a simple ceremony with Admiral Carter officiating. "It's hard to believe how much has changed," Jack said. Lily nodded. The Craxian Empire ruled for thousands of years. Everyone thought they would rule for thousands. More. On the screen, they could see cities where the lights glowed warmly in the darkness of the planet's night side. Those cities had once been slave quarters. Now, they were homes for free people. "Commander Miller," said the communications officer, "Admiral Carter requests your presence in the conference room. The delegation from New Craxia has arrived." Jack and Lily walked together to the large conference room. Around the table sat a strange mix of beings. On one side were human officials, including Admiral Carter. On the other side sat 3 Craxians, their gray skin and black eyes familiar, but their manner very different from the proud warriors Jack had fought for so long. These Craxians looked tired and unsure. "Commander Miller, Mrs. Miller," Admiral Carter greeted them. "Please join us. The representatives of New Craxia are ready to sign the peace treaty." Jack and Lily took their seats. The lead Craxian, who introduced himself as Elder Vex, pushed a document across the table. "The High Council has agreed to all terms," Vex said, his deep voice lacking the usual Craxian arrogance. "The war is over." Jack picked up the document and read it carefully, though he already knew what it said. The Craxian Empire was no more. In its place was a much smaller nation called New Craxia, consisting of just the Craxian homeworld and 2 nearby planets. All slaveholding had been outlawed. All former slave worlds were now independent, free to govern themselves or join the human alliance if they wished. "This is a wise decision," Jack said, signing the document and passing it to Lily. Lily looked at the paper for a long moment before adding her signature. Jack knew what she was thinking. This piece of paper represented the end of a system that had stolen her childhood and freedom, a system that had treated her and millions of others as property instead of people. "What will happen to your people now?" Lily asked Vex. "Without slaves to do your work?" Vex looked down at his hands. "We are learning to work for ourselves. It is difficult. Many of our people don't know how to grow food or make things. Some are starving. Some are angry. But others are learning and adapting." "And the former ruling class?" Jack asked. "Some killed themselves rather than live in the new world," Vex admitted. "Others are trying to rebuild our society based on something other than power and domination. It will take generations." After the Craxian delegation left, Jack and Lily returned to their quarters. The next day they would leave for Earth. Jack had been promoted to Admiral, and Lily had been asked to lead a new program called the Interstellar Rehabilitation Initiative. The program would help former slaves adjust to freedom while preserving their unique knowledge and cultures. "Are you ready to see Earth?" Jack asked as they packed their few belongings. Lily smiled. "I barely remember it. I was so young when I was taken." "It's beautiful," Jack promised. "There are oceans and mountains and cities where people have been free for centuries." Lily's smile faded a little. "Will they accept me? Us? I was a slave for so long. I'm not sure I know how to live in a free society." Jack took her hands in his. "You freed thousands of slaves. You helped end a war that killed millions. You'll be welcomed as a hero." She leaned her head against his chest. "I'm not a hero. I just wanted to stop others from suffering as I did." "That's exactly what makes you a hero," Jack said softly. 3 weeks later, Jack and Lily stood in a large hall on Earth. Around them were representatives from dozens of worlds, both human colonies and former slave planets. On a stage at the front of the room, Admiral Carter was speaking. "The fall of the Craxian Empire marks a new chapter in galactic history," she said. "For the first time, many species are determining their own futures. Some are rebuilding ancient cultures that were nearly destroyed by centuries of slavery. Others are creating entirely new societies." She gestured to Jack and Lily. This new era began because one man refused to accept that another person could be property, and because one woman had the courage to use her painful past to create a better future. Everyone in the hall stood and applauded. Lily squeezed Jack's hand tightly, still uncomfortable with so much attention. After the ceremony, they walked along a beach near the meeting hall. The sun was setting, turning the ocean a deep orange. "What do you think will happen now?" Lily asked, watching the waves wash onto the shore. "The former slave worlds are forming a confederation," Jack said. "They've asked me to serve as a human representative. And they've asked me to help them create laws to prevent slavery from ever returning," Lily added. "But I was thinking about something else, something more personal." Jack looked at her curiously. "What?" Lily smiled, a full, radiant smile that still made Jack's heart beat faster. "I was thinking about us having a family, children who will grow up free, never knowing what it's like to be property." Jack pulled her close and kissed her. "I would like that very much." As they walked along the beach, hand in hand, Jack thought about the strange path that had brought them here. How the Craxians and their arrogance had given him Lily as a gift, never imagining that this one act would lead to their downfall. The Craxians had never considered that their slaves were watching, learning, and waiting. They had created the perfect network of spies against themselves, and they had given Jack the one person who could unravel their entire empire. Historians would later mark this period as the beginning of the Galactic Confederation, with humans serving not as conquerors, but as liberators and mediators. The story of Jack and Lily would be taught in schools across many worlds, how a single act of compassion had sparked a revolution that reshaped the power structure of an entire sector of space. As they reached the end of the beach, Lily stopped and looked up at the stars that were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "I never thought I would be free," she said softly. "Now thousands of others are free too." "Because of you," Jack reminded her. Lily shook her head. "Because of us. Because you saw me as a person when everyone else saw property." Jack looked up at the same stars. Out there, new societies were forming, based not on domination but on cooperation and respect. A new order was taking shape, and he and Lily would help build it. "Ready to go home?" he asked. Lily smiled and took his hand. "I am home. Wherever we are together is home." As they walked back toward the lights of the city, Jack knew that the greatest weapon against tyranny wasn't a battleship or a superweapon. It was the simple, revolutionary idea that freedom is the birthright of all thinking beings. And it had started with one small act of kindness in the midst of a long and bitter war.